Right off the bat, I'm just gonna say that I haven't finished this series yet. There's 15 books and I've only read up to 4, but I went online and noticed a significant lack of people talking about these books. I've been having such a blast with what I've been reading that I just couldn't hold off on just doing it myself. So if it gets worse later, whoops. Guardians of Gahoole is a xenofiction kids book series about owls in a medieval setting. But I don't feel like people in owl bodies, they feel like how it would be if owls had their own medieval period. This series is clearly written by someone who loves owls and knows a lot about them, as there's a lot of real biological facts used for world building, like their unique organ, the gizzard, being sort of revered in the same way there's a lot of phrases about our heart, or how Soren can hear things from way larger distances than his friends because he's a barn owl, or even simple things like owls saying good night to each other when they go to sleep because they're nocturnal. You can even go to the back of the book and see which specific species each owl is, even if there's spoilers in there. You can see these owls grow as societies in real time. Knowledge about things well known to us are limited to them, like fire and magnets. And magnets affect the owl's navigational senses, so they're heavily used in warfare. They've got their own owl words and phrases in religion, of course, but you can also see brief glimpses of how owls in different places had differences in culture. What comes to mind first is the northern kingdoms having their own language and stories, but there's even small details like the owls in the desert knowing about the dangers of moon blinking because it's more likely to happen there, or some owls in the forest of Alba having unique quirks or powers because of the high magnetic content in their river water. And that's what Guardians of Gahoole does best at, details. This series really sells you on its world building. We know how each of the factions function, for instance, and how the owls live, and it never feels like too much information because it's all introduced naturally. The books allow itself to take its time, letting us get to really know how stuff like the different jobs the owls can get at St. Agolius or Gahoole, or the fascinating backstories of some characters you wouldn't expect to even have any. The plot itself isn't ever really super complex. Our cast's objective are just things like survive at this place or find your missing teacher. And these simple setups allow for a lot of the sort of detail and atmosphere to be built around it. Like, there's one half of a book where the cast is trying to find the rogue smith of Silvervale in hopes that she'll tell them something that'll help them find their teacher. But once they do, she doesn't really say anything that relevant to that. But I'm not even upset in the slightest reading that, because what we do learn is pretty interesting, and everything that led to that was so fun that the minimal payoff is pretty fine. Which is kind of astounding, actually. I don't know how many books would be able to pull that off and keep going. The story is pretty dark as well, not just in the violence standard way that is typical for xenofiction or used just for shock value, but in a way that's used to say things, and in a way speak towards very human experiences. I'll give you an example. There's one place called St. Agolius Academy for Orphaned Owls, who kidnap owlets and eggs, declare them as orphans even if they weren't, and then put them through a process called moon blinking, in which they make them sleep facing the moon until they lose their sense of self, make them march as they repeat their names over and over again until it becomes meaningless noise so they can learn to think of themselves using their assigned number designation instead, and if they ever ask a question, they're put through laughter therapy, in which they are publicly plucked of their wing feathers. Oh, and there's also bats that suck blood out of them so they don't even have any desire to fly. All of that is in the first book. The main villains, which aren't even related to St. Agolius, are very explicitly owl fascists. And even when grooming gets introduced to the story, it's not out of place or used for shock value, it makes things make sense. This series has some dreadful segments where it really knows how to make you feel sick while reading it, but it's all balanced out with segments that know how to make you feel incredibly comforted. Sometimes a chapter is just our characters living their best life at Gahoole, narratively acknowledged as an imperfect but still wonderful place, and you really feel at home reading those. These characters are pretty great too, might I add. And there's also a film adaptation which is called Legend of the Guardians Owls of Gahoole, but it tries to squeeze 3 books worth of plot into an hour 30, and it ends up having practically none of the detail and world building that made the books good to begin with, practically turning it into a fairy tale instead with how simple it is. It's not a bad watch by any means, very worth a view if only for its absolutely stunning animation, but for the real story experience you're gonna have to read it. None of this is to say these books are perfect either. It has an issue of unsubtly overly explaining things that happened in previous books, or sometimes it tells you about a character development in the narration before you can see the change. And there's also a subtle power imbalance between owls and snakes. It's kind of antithetical to the point of having the pure ones, which is subtle enough that I'm pretty sure it wasn't intentional. If you can get past that, though, you're in for an amazing read. Whether you do read it or not, thanks for watching this far. It means a lot. Technically, this is my first video on this channel. I do have some more I want to make later. Don't know how long that'll take though. So maybe I'll catch you later. And if not, hope you had a good time.